Last month, voters in the Franklin County town of Conway declared it a safe community. The designation aims to prevent local police from detaining people based on actual or perceived immigration status. And according to the bylaw, that people in town welcome both immigrants and non-immigrants alike. Tonight, we bring you our second conversation about this issue, this time from a bylaw supporter, Tom Lesser.
I thought it was a strong majority of the town of Conway made their voices heard. 8 people spoke in favor of it. 1 person spoke against it. Strong majority voted for it. And I think that represents the town of Conway.
And in terms of, Conway's a town of fewer than 2,000 people, and about 200 showed up at the town meeting. Is that about the typical draw for a town meeting? I know you're a longtime resident there.
I've been there for 40 years. That was just about as many people as ever turn out.
And so you're among those who voted in favor of this bylaw. Why did you think that it's something that's needed for the town?
One of our selectmen wrote an article in the Greenfield Recorder in which he was adamantly opposed to it.
And you're speaking of John O'Rourke.
I am. And he gave reasons which were not accurate, which were not true. And the worst thing he did is he called the citizens who might vote for it seditious.
And so that was offensive to you. I mean, I know that the piece you're speaking of, and that was his personal opinion, so certainly he's entitled.
That was his personal opinion. He's totally entitled to that. And he was totally entitled to call us ridiculous if we voted for it.
But why did that word...
That was his opinion.
But why did that word seditious stand out to you? Why was that offensive?
Because sedition means that you're acting to overthrow the United States government. There is no worse crime short of murder or rape than sedition. And in Conway, we have our disagreements. We have our opinions. We have over the years. But we have never name-called. We have never personally attacked the other side like he was doing. And I've been involved. One of my partners tried a sedition case many years ago. I'm very familiar with the term.
And so one of the things Mr. O'Rourke raised as a concern here on Connecting Point is that now that this bylaw has been passed in Conway, he's concerned that that will open the community up to additional crime or other sort of unseemly elements coming to the community. What do you think about that?
Well, there's two parts of that. Number one, a number of other communities in Franklin County have passed a similar bylaw.
And in fact, throughout the state of Massachusetts.
Throughout the state of Massachusetts have passed similar bylaws. And there was a recent long study which indicated that people who are in this country on an undocumented basis have lower crime rates than the citizens of the United States.
And so you're not concerned that this bylaw is going to sort of invite bad things to happen in Conway?
Well, in his words, I think that's ridiculous. That's my opinion.
And I know that you're a longtime town council, former town council in Conway. Was immigration ever anything of a concern while you were there? Did it come up as an issue, as a challenge for the community that needed to be addressed?
No, it's never been an issue. And I have a little story about when I moved to Conway. It was 40-some years ago, and I was somewhat different from people there.
In what way?
I was a newcomer, and most people had lived there for many, many years. My hair was a little longer. I think that some of the people I was living with dressed a little stranger. And one of the selectmen, actually the father of our present chief of police, he came to me and asked me to be town council. And we totally disagreed on a variety of issues. And I thought some of his stances politically were pretty out there. And maybe he thought some of my stances were pretty out there. But that didn't prevent us from becoming friends. It didn't prevent him from saying, will you be town council of Conway?
And so you found a way to sort of work through your differences.
Absolutely.
And so I know that this was a concern in the Greenfield Recorder. Brendan O'Connell, who's a resident of Conway, wrote about that. He said, he, much like you, was an outsider. He felt very welcomed when he moved to Conway, is what he said in his piece in the paper. And it said, quote, It saddens me to think that some think this welcome should only be extended to those with a certain immigration status. Do you find Conway to be a closed-off place or a welcoming place now? What's your experience?
I find it to be still a very welcoming community by and large. When we were building the school, I was on the school building committee, and we tried to get the most conservative people in town to be on the school building committee because we knew if we were united, we'd build a school. And if we were divided, we wouldn't build a school. And 90% of the citizens ended up being in favor of the school, which was where the town meeting was held, which everybody in town is incredibly proud of.
And so that's an example for you of where the town has worked together. Now, as Mr. O'Rourke spoke with us recently on the program, he said that he or others in the town are considering putting forth a measure that would repeal this bylaw. What do you think about that effort?
Well, I think it's been decided by a good-sized majority at a town meeting. I don't think people, and many people actually abstained because they didn't want to take sides on this, because they didn't think it was good for Conway. I would hate to see it brought back, but if it's brought back, I'm quite certain that after a fair debate, it would be tabled, which means that there would be no vote on this.
And so the existing bylaw that has been passed, would that then remain?
That would remain, but the existing bylaw only reaffirms existing state law. Our Supreme Judicial Court in 2017 said that local law enforcement agents cannot act on ICE detainers. And that's really what our bylaw says.
It seems though that same ruling is held up by both sides. It's somewhat of a controversial ruling, it seems.
It's not really controversial. It was 7 members of the Supreme Judicial Court. It was unanimous. It wasn't controversial to the court. The court said not only was it constitutional, it did not violate the U.S. Constitution if the local law enforcement officers acted in that way, it would violate the state constitution. So it's only controversial, I think, in John O'Rourke and some other people's minds. I think the law is absolutely clear.